One of my viewers sent me this picture. Can you believe it?
Yes.
In the early days, engineers of ISRO
yep.
had to send rocket parts with their bicycles to assemble them for testing. This is the situation they had to deal with every single day. They don't have a lot of resources, but they
weren't gonna give up. Welcome back to the Adapter. I'm Ava, and today I'll be checking out a video called "Is India's ISRO the most successful space agency after NASA?" Well, in the spirit of it being ISRO's birthday as well as Independence Day, why not check this out and be a little proud? Let's get started.
This video is supported by Brilliant. Hey, welcome back, I'm Lai. On this channel, I've talked a lot about technology and business space companies. I've talked about national agencies like NASA, ESA, and Roscosmos. I've also talked about private companies like SpaceX and Rocket Lab. One entity I've refrained to talk about is ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, simply because it's really hard to pigeonhole ISRO. Yes, it is a traditional national agency, much like NASA of the United States, but it's also at the same time extremely cost-conscious and result-oriented, like a startup. Its launch price is almost as competitive as SpaceX. So let's talk about it today. Where does ISRO really fit in, and what makes it so special? First of all, it is not fair to compare ISRO with other space agencies because ISRO has never possessed the ambitions or the fundings like the other space agencies. NASA's budget each year is $18 billion, $7 billion for European Space Agency, $3 billion for the Chinese and the Russians. ISRO's budget each year is only $1.7 billion. Think about it. With $285 billion cash reserve, Apple could have funded ISRO with cash for 167 years. That is how little ISRO spends every year, and that is why comparing ISRO with NASA wouldn't be fair. However, this is not to say that ISRO has not achieved extraordinary results.
Even in their budget.
It has. Two of the most successful launches of ISRO is the PSLV C-37 in 2017 and the Mangoyan in 2013. PSLV C-37 until this day holds the record for launching the most satellites in a single rocket, and Mangoyan successfully helped ISRO to become the fourth country to orbit Mars, even before the Chinese. But none of the aforementioned achievements comes close to what ISRO has spent for both missions.
Exactly.
Around $70 million each. This, I think, reflects the core philosophy of ISRO, which is to be ambitious, but at the same time, cost-effective. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union and the United States competed fiercely in the space industry, which eventually accelerated the collapse of the Soviet Union, and now the Chinese are catching up with the Americans. Not to compete with NASA this time, but the Chinese are not going to be anyone else's lackey either. Therefore, while other space agencies compete to make the most powerful rockets in the world, ISRO never seemed to care about that. Just look at the evolution of its rocket launches. They're all humbly named satellite launch vehicles. Different variations indicated by the first letter represent different orbit. PSLV for polar synchronous orbit and GSLV for geosynchronous orbit. This is the first clue of how pragmatic ISRO is. The second clue is in its vehicle design. If you take a closer look at ISRO's rocket evolution, it looks almost like SpaceX. The only difference is that ISRO has a more stable financial support from the Indian government, and SpaceX had none. But in terms of the approach to design launch vehicles, both organizations are very similar. SLV and ASLV was initiated in the 1980s, and ASLV's capability is similar to that of Falcon 1. The three versions of PSLVs have similar capabilities comparing to early versions of Falcon 9, and the GSLV has capabilities somewhat catching on to Falcon 9 Block 5. None of them could be classified as a super heavy lift launch vehicle like Falcon Heavy and Saturn V, but they're all super reliable and, most importantly, very cost-effective. What's more impressive about the evolution of ISRO's launch vehicles is their adaptability. Take PSLV as an example. It has three versions: PSLV-CA, which stands for Core Alone, Standard PSLV, and PSLV-XL. Well, all of them focus on polar synchronous orbit, which is around 600 kilometers altitude. Customers can choose which variations of vehicles to use based on the size of the satellite. This is the beauty of a cost-effective launcher. Furthermore, because of its focus on cost effectiveness, ISRO also has to come up with brilliant engineering solutions to the problems it faces. One famous example is its experimental mission to Mars. On top of being the only successful Mars mission on the first try, ISRO had to perform 6 orbit-raising maneuvers over 3 weeks before heading to Mars. Because the vehicle does not have enough power like the Falcon Heavy to send satellites directly to Mars, it slowly raises the satellite's orbit before injecting it successfully to a heliocentric orbit to Mars. The engineering and the problem-solving behind it is truly amazing. This, I think, captures the essence of ISRO's success. As the founding father of ISRO, Vikram, used to say, there are some who question the relevance of space activities in a developing nation. To us, there's no ambiguity of purpose. We do not have the fantasy of competing with the economically advanced nations in the exploration of the moon or the planets or manned space flight. But we're convinced that if we're to play a meaningful role nationally and in the community of nations, we must be second to none in the applications of advanced technologies to the real problems of man and society. I think this is the key to understand what ISRO stands for and how it differs from other space agencies and companies. This is also why I said at the beginning, it is really hard to pigeonhole ISRO. It didn't have the fundings that NASA had, it didn't have the startup mindset and institution that SpaceX had, but none of this stopped ISRO from doing something extraordinary. This just comes to show how important passion and dedication is for any organization. You know, talking about ISRO makes me really happy because it's clearly made out of people who are passionate, dedicated, and above all, an institution that encourages it. Looking forward into the future, I think ISRO
frustrating
will
as it might get
continue to do
sometimes,
great
like,
things.
it's just easier to have more money, you know,
first
but
manned mission in 2022, I'd say good luck to ISRO.
Yeah.
Before I published this video, one of my viewers sent me this picture. Can you believe it?
Yes.
In the early days, engineers of ISRO had to send rocket parts with their bicycles to assemble them for testing. This is the situation they had to deal with every single day. They don't have a lot of resources, but they
weren't gonna give
is
up.
passion and dedication.
Yes.
They only achieved what they did through hard work and a lot of practice.
The one thing that I didn't know that I'm so grateful for have learned in this video is that I didn't know that ISRO is more of just like, we're trying to better ourselves, we're trying to make it convenient for our customers, we are trying to be a better us instead of worrying about money and resources and worrying about the world. ISRO is basically like a human being, and there's so much self-confidence in this one being, and that their purpose is so clear that it kind of alleviates them from like the pressure that maybe other people are feeling, because I'm sure NASA feels the pressure that if I'm getting $18 billion, I better have something to show for it. Versus 1.7 billion, look, we accomplished all this even with only 1.7 billion. In that one moment, it literally felt like, hey, look, I found this t-shirt on sale and I got a coupon. I think maybe even as India grows, they might still keep such tight budget because they're coming up with such creative solutions to problems versus like taking the easy path and just spending money on it. They're definitely benefiting more out of this. I just hope they continue to see that and continue taking pride in that and have many more success stories. That is pretty much my take for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys haven't done so already, definitely subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I can also be found on Instagram, Facebook, so check me out there. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.